Hello my friends, Hank here, and in our previous videos we've spent a lot of time learning about the evolution of Luftwaffe Day Fighter camouflage schemes throughout the course of the Second World War. We've learned how to paint up early war schemes, we've learned how to paint up mid-war schemes, so today we're going to tackle our late war camo schemes. For our demonstration today, we're going to be painting up this lovely 1/48 scale Tamiya ME262. Now, the camouflage scheme pattern we're going to be working on here will be a standard tricolor splinter scheme of RLM 76, 81, 82 that starts to appear on Luftwaffe fighters starting in 1944 and stretching into the final days of the war in 1945. Let's check out a quick clip from my complete guide to Luftwaffe fighter camos for a little historical context. Once we reach 1944, things start to get a little squirrely for the German armaments industry. Germany itself is getting routinely smashed by massive Allied bombing raids, and it's not as easy as it once was to keep up with any form of standardization. Beyond that, acquisition of raw materials is becoming an issue, and priority is being placed on material deemed absolutely essential to the war effort. Part of the decision to phase out RLM 65 in favor of RLM 76 as the main sky camouflage for day fighters, for example, is believed to be because the paint required a significant amount of cobalt in its production. Cobalt is needed for the production of high-grade industrial tool steels, which of course takes priority over paint. Around this time, we start to see the introduction of a final late war splinter camo scheme that I like to call the brown era of Luftwaffe fighters. This final scheme is made up of RLM 76 Weissblau, which carries over from the previous scheme for our aircraft's underbellies, as well as a two-tone splinter camo for the top consisting of RLM 81 Braun Violet, or Brown Violet, and RLM 82 Hellgrün, or Light Green. The biggest influence on this change to the final brown scheme was, beyond the desperate supply situation in Germany, the fact that air superiority over the continent had long been lost by the Luftwaffe. By the middle of 1944, more German aircraft are being destroyed by Allied bombers and fighter bombers on the ground than in the air for the very first time since the war started. So it is critically important for this new camouflage scheme to help provide effective cover for aircraft on the ground, hidden throughout the German countryside. And once again, as we'd seen with all of our previous phases of camouflage, ground crews are also going to be using existing approved camouflage paint colors in stock to apply additional camouflage to their aircraft. And on top of that, some aircraft are still coming out of the factories in our mid-war gray scheme while supplies last, as we saw with the Harbin 109 that we checked out over at the American Heritage Museum. The late war brown scheme is most synonymous with some of the final fighter variants taken to the skies over Europe in the waning months of the Second World War. Think FW190D Doras and late A model versions, BF109G10s, 14s, K4s, as well as the groundbreaking ME262 Jet and ME163 Rocket Interceptors. Okay, let's get over to the bench and get cracking on this build. Now, some of you might recognize this bird from a lesson a couple weeks back on chipping your scale models, but our main focus today is on the camouflage paint application for this iconic late war jet fighter. To prepare our model for our camo work, we're first going to finish building our kit, of course, and then we're going to prime the entire kit with a coat of black surface primer to give us a nice base to work up from. With our primer applied, we're then going to spray our entire kit with a coat of white aluminum, as you can see here. This will serve as our reveal coat. More on that in a bit. At this stage, we're going to prepare our model for a little chipping weathering work later on in the process. We need to spray the entire kit with a coat of hairspray to serve as our chipping agent here. For a full in-depth tutorial on hairspray chipping, I recommend checking out my video on the technique right here. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and decant a bit of this hairspray into my airbrush and spray this all over my model like I would with a traditional coat of varnish. Once that hairspray is applied and is dried completely, it's time for us to start our camo scheme. As you can see here, I've stuffed some toilet paper into the wheel wells of our 262 and masked off our gear covers to prevent overspray into the interior compartments. We're going to start our camouflage work with a coat of RLM 76 all over the belly of our aircraft. We want this to extend about a third of the way up on the sides of our engine nacelles and on the sides of the fuselage, as well as the entirety of our vertical stabilizer. Once our RLM 76 belly color is complete, we're going to load up our brush with some RLM 82 Hellgrün, or light green, that will serve as our main color block upper camouflage color. We want this to go all over the upper surfaces of the aircraft, the entire upper fuselage, the top 2/3 of the engine nacelles, and the leading edges of our horizontal stabilizer. We also want to speckle in some models of RLM 82 on the trailing edges of our horizontal stabilizer and rudder, as you can see here. Finally, we'll want to spray the upper surfaces of our horizontal stabilizer as well. Alright, now through the magic of editing, I've gone ahead and masked off some of our splinter sections all over the upper surfaces of our 262. At this stage, I will say, there is a considerable amount of variation on the camo schemes in actual splinters you'll see on the many variants of fighters that were serving with the Day Fighter wings throughout the war. My recommendation, as always, is to find a reference photo to serve as an inspiration as you go along. Actual archival materials are best, but sometimes I'll even pull up an aircraft in War Thunder to just take a peek at the in-game renderings of certain schemes. That can be helpful as well. But brass tacks here, what we want to do is paint these splinters with our secondary upper camo color, RLM 81 Brown Violet. As long as you've got some historical inspiration to reference and you're using the correct color palette, you're in good shape. Alright, now for the fun part. Let's start removing our masks and see how this splinter scheme looks. Very happy with how this came out. A little overspray on the front gear cover, but nothing we can't go back and fix with some precise airbrush work. And once our camo scheme has been applied, it's finally time to come back and start chipping some of this otherwise pristine scheme. As mentioned previously, pop on over to my full tutorial on the process for an in-depth look at the most authentic way to recreate this natural wear and tear on these war-weary aircraft. Once your chipping work is done, this late war scheme is ready for decaling and weathering. Apply a good coat of gloss varnish and carry on with your process as you normally would. And just like that, you've got yourself a beautiful late war RLM 76, 81, 82 scheme for the Luftwaffe bird of your choice. I hope you guys liked the video. I'll have a full list of links down below to my complete series on Luftwaffe model projects for you to check out. And until next time, my friends, be well, happy building, cheers.